So, the coronavirus. Hello and welcome to Sister Rosa Tarot. For all of you who have been following me for a long time, welcome back. It's been a very long time. I just had my first child, Aurora, and so she's taking up a lot of my consciousness right now. And it's just been a giant blessing. It's been so beautiful and I'm so happy. For all of you who wished me congratulations and who have been asking how I am, thank you. I love you guys. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Sister Rosa and I'm a sister in the Sisters of the Valley, which is a spiritual eco-feminist organization that's based both in the United States but also in Brazil, Sweden, New Zealand, England, and so on and so forth. And today I'm going to do a channeled reading to understand why this coronavirus pandemic has come to the planet, what it means for us. Obviously there's a lot of theories going around out there in the ether, and there's a wide range between, I've noticed a wide range between euphoric emotions to downright fear and anger. Like, this pandemic has really brought out everything from humanity, like every type of emotion and every type of extreme we could really have. And out there in the new age, in the esoteric community, there's a lot of ideas going around about why we're having this pandemic, that it's, the start of the age of Aquarius, that it's the start of a new era. And it definitely is a game changer. It definitely is. It represents a shift in the mind of humanity. I don't think this is going to be like the one thing that tips the ship. I don't think this is going to be the one drop that makes the glass flow over, if that's an English expression. I'm not sure. I'm Swedish myself. But we have a multitude of happenings happening at once, and this is definitely a big one. This is definitely a big shift and a big wake-up call for human consciousness. With that said, there's not going to be, I don't believe there's going to be that one thing that wakes us up and makes us change. It's going to be a sequence of things, some bigger, some smaller, and this is a bigger one, definitely a bigger one. But we've had a lot of wake-up calls during the last few years, such as big bushfires in Australia and California, different types of natural catastrophes happening, global warming being noticeable pretty much everywhere, big national catastrophes such as Trump being elected being one of those. Anyway, we've had a lot of wake-up calls, a lot of things happening that's really forcing humanity to look at where we're going and why we're doing the things that we're doing. The status quo is not so much a status quo anymore. We don't have, for example, if you look at the United States, you guys don't have that much of a middle class anymore. So what was taken to be like, the gold standard of humanity, the gold standard of the way that you were supposed to live, is no longer available to most people. And so that's a wake-up call in itself. When 1% of the Earth's population owns as much property and assets as 50% of the rest of the Earth's population, that's a wake-up call. We've been having many wake-up calls lately, but this is a big one, so I would like to channel Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, Mother Goddess, and Hildegard von Bingen, and St. Francis, please, to please help me understand what this means for humanity. And why this has come to us and where we're going with this, what changes this will bring to us. So please, Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, St. Francis, Hildegard von Bingen, and Mother Goddess, please guide and channel through me and help my viewers and myself to understand why we have the coronavirus pandemic and where we're going from here, or where we can be going, because everything is always potential, so it's up to us what we want to do with those potentials. Okay. So let the reading begin. So, before I began this reading, I pulled one card from the Thoth Tarot, and the card that I got was Adjustment. You know, this is a really pivotal card, and I will be trying to center the reading around this card. It just flew out of the deck, and it's very poignant for this time. Obviously, we are going through a big shift, a big period of adjustment, but the question is from what and to what, and that's what I would like to have answered. Okay, so there's one card. So what is it that we would like to see adjusted in humanity? What needs to be adjusted? What needs to be adjusted, and what tectonic shift, what adjustment is happening because of in the human psyche? Ooh! Okay. In the human psyche. In the human psyche. Okay. So we have a few cards out of the deck already. I'm going to show the cards to you. And we have the Queen of Wands, the Knight of Cups, and this one, I can't remember what it's called or how many they are. I think there are like 7. 4 of Pentacles, yeah, that's 7 of Cups. And then the Page of Cups. We have a tectonic shift going on where we're going from patriarchy, male ship rule, which has brought us to a point where a point of disillusionment is what I'm seeing here. A point of disillusionment and a point of like holding on to stagnant energies. I would like to know what those stagnant energies are. What are they? What are they focused on? What is this disillusionment focused on? Too many cards. I would like fewer cards, please. I'm getting so many cards that the messages are getting jumbled, and it's easier when I have fewer cards. What has humanity been stuck on? What is this stagnant energy focused on? What is this stagnant energy focused on? What have we been holding on to? Okay. Interesting. One more card. One more card, please. Just one more. Okay, so there we have it. So what I'm hearing or what I'm sensing is that we're getting emotional support from the universe, and I'm almost getting like from Mother Earth or from some other type of, maybe not Mother Earth, but from some other type of entity. I'm getting that we're surrounded by spirits that want to remind us what we really care about, and that wants to heal our wounds. So what I'm hearing is that humanity right now is wounded, and that the heartaches that we have when it comes to wealth inequality, when it comes to climate change, when it comes to the oppression of women, the oppression of people of color, the oppression of animals, the oppression of the natural world, and so on and so forth. When it comes to those things are all chained up in an obsession with denial. So there's been like an oppression of emotions here. There's been a holding on, like almost like, yeah, a holding on to the ego, a holding on to the identity, a holding on to possessions. Like, if I can just call myself this thing, if I can just do this one thing in my life, if I can just be known for this one thing, if I can just have this one house, or if I can just have this car, if I can just have this name, whatever it might be, like ego gratification things, have been becoming of all the more important for people in general, to the point where that's all people have. And the reason for that is that there's so many repressed emotions of being failed, of being stolen from, of not having enough, of not being enough. I know that we hear a lot about how social media is fake, in the way that we are presented with these ideal images of how people want us to think that they live their lives, but we never see when they break down crying, or we never see when they're having a bad hair day. We only see when they're looking perfect and taking this perfect selfie, and then we compare ourselves to those like Instagram models or whatever, and we get really sad. Well, we live in that kind of culture, or we have been living in that kind of culture, which have been increasingly obsessed with appearances. Whether that has to do with like the butt of Kim Kardashian, or if it has to do with the way that you're being seen on social media, or what your status is in terms of relationships or job or whatever. We have increasingly lost touch with what actually means something to us, as a humanity. And if we go into the astrology of this a little bit, we are in Cancer North Node, which means that our ideal, our most beautiful expression, our most ideal expression of humanity right now is in the home, is in the heart, is in the things that are not public, the things that are not on display, the things that are not on Instagram, and the things that are dearest in your heart, your childhood memories, and your childhood friends, your children, your partner when you're lying in bed and just talking on the phone, or whatever it might be. Those gentle moments that really can't be captured or presented to the world. They are only yours. They're yours to keep. And those moments are really what we need to go back to right now, because we have been so obsessed with our appearances for so long that we've lost touch with everything that gives substance to humanity, that gives substance to our sense of being human. And the reason that we have been doing this is that there's a sense of community loss across all spectrums of humanity. There's a sense of having lost something, of not being enough. I keep hearing not being enough. there's a collective sense of not being enough. And especially in the Western world, there's this collective sense of not being enough. And I don't know how the coronavirus has hit in other parts of the world. I mean, obviously in Iran, it's been really a really bad situation. But it's definitely something that's hit really hard, especially in the Western world, in the United States and in Europe, for example. And I think that we need to have this public image, this public sphere thrown in shambles. And it's really sad that we've had to have something so abrupt and something so shaking happen in order to do that. But maybe that is what was needed, because we didn't seem to be able to wake up without it. Now we have something that's been brought upon us that is forcing us to go back to that gentle space, that is forcing us out of the public eye, that is actually forcing us to close down the public space, the public sphere, completely for a moment. And everything of this, like all of this, is woven together. So we have the Queen of Staves and we have the Knight of Pentacles on one side of this reading. Dun, dun, dun. And then on the other side we have the Page of Cups. And it's funny because children and teenagers are generally spared of this disease, both the coronavirus disease, but I would also say of the disease to be obsessed with appearances, because the more you become an adult, the less fluid you are. Sure, teenagers and children can often, be made to feel as though they're not enough. Of course, they compare themselves an awful amount when they're in school and so on and so forth to their peers, but they don't get obsessed with their appearances in the way that adults do, because they're not fixed in their expression of self in the same way that adults are. So we are here being forced to go back to that fluid sense of self, that fluid sense of, my value is not in what I present to others. My value is not in what I... my value is not anchored in my status or in what I'm called or what I work with or whatever, what my house looks like. My value is actually the value that I experience from the inside. When I experience happiness, my life is full. When I experience love, my life is full. I don't need any more value than the values that I get to experience in this lifetime. And that childish sense of wonder, that childish sense of just experiencing the world without expecting, is something that we're being forced to do now, because we're being forced out of the public eye. We're being forced to reckon with our own fears as well. Fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of not having enough, fear of being stolen from or of other people being more than. There's a lot of fear here that has created a very fixed, stagnant position. And it's interesting because I think Taurus season, which is right now, is going to be very healing for that, because Taurus season is more fixed than any other type of season. So Taurus understands, the fixed aspect of things. Like, how can you be fixed without being stuck? How can you just be something without anchoring it in an idea or in an obsession? Just be still for a moment, and see what that gives you. It's a gentle, still type of energy, rather than what many of the other signs I think can experience when they get locked into an idea of who they should be or what they should be doing, which is an obsessive stillness that is hanging on to things, clinging on to things. Taurus is naturally stuck. Taurus is naturally still, but it's a stillness that has a root in the heart, in the experience of the world, in the experience of love, in the experience of food, in the experience of, breathing in the scent of the air, or sensing the sunlight on your cheeks when you go outside. That's the stillness that Taurus represents. This is also intertwined with the divine feminine and us going into a more egalitarian mindset. We've had toxic masculinity going on a rampage. We've had a lot of feminist victories over the last 50, 100, obviously 1,000 years. And 100 years ago we couldn't vote, now we can vote, and so on and so forth. So obviously a lot is happening, but there's also been a backlash towards that, where there's an aggressiveness among some men in society towards women because they're sensing that they're losing power. And you can see this, for example, in porn, you can see this in comments on the internet. There's an incredible toxicity in some men towards women because we are becoming more powerful. So here we're seeing humanity, because I'm getting a lot of like feminine women vibes here. And also when you look at the values of, for example, the Cancer North Node, and also what we're going through right now, when we're having to stay at home, when we're having to cook more, when we're having to take care of our own and just be in that home space rather than in the public space. That's something that's always been associated historically with the divine feminine, or not with the divine feminine, just with the feminine, just with the women-led sphere. We have always connected men with the public and women with the private. Women were the ones who took care of children. Women were the ones who took care of the dying and the elderly. Women were the ones who took care of the home, and men were the ones who were out there doing politics. And we've had such a extreme unbalance between the public and the private as of late. The private has had almost no value, and in fact, we have been trying to publicize the private and make it public. We've tried to make every aspect of our experience of being human public, whether it has to do with our emotions, publicizing different types of tweets or articles on Medium or whatever, or if it has to do with what we're doing at home, when we're taking photos of that and presenting that to the world, and so on and so forth. So this interconnectedness that we have through the internet, it's in fact created the erasure or the elimination of the private sphere, and an enormous pressure to be a certain someone in every sphere and present it outwards. Here I am seeing a going back to the basics, like we're going back to really having to sit still. And again, Taurus season is a really lovely time to do this, really having to sit still with our hearts and just experience things, and really having to sit still with the feminine and see where we're hurting, where we're feeling as though we would need our mother's love, where we're feeling as though we are not enough, and where we're trying to compensate for that through action in the outer world. So if you have a moment, if you're feeling extreme bouts of fear, or if you're feeling stressed, extremely stressed, or just in general, if you're having a hard time coping with this, or just want to have more benefit from what's happening right now and from this quarantine, then sit down for a moment, meditate on the color green, meditate on your heart, and try and see if you have any pains or sorrows or fears coming up there, and try and explore them, try and let them come to your surface. And if you have a loving mother, grandmother, someone in your family who represents love and support and nurture, try and imagine what they would say to you to help you get out of this. So try and imagine how they would see the doubts that you are going through. Would they be viewing you in the same way as you view yourself? or would they view you differently? And if you don't have a person like that in your life, try and imagine someone else who's been kind to you. It can be a friend, it can be a cat, it can just be a stranger on the town. Would they see you that way that you are viewing yourself when you are scared of not being enough, or when you are, feeling stressed that you can't be out there anymore because there's something that you need to do to prove yourself? If you can sense that there's a sense of fear of not being enough, or a sense of lack of some sort, try and imagine how someone else would view you, and if they would see that lack in you, or if it's something that you are creating within yourself. And if you can just sit still with it for a moment and feel that love from that person, whether it's your mom or whether it's a friend, and let that heal the space in your heart that feels empty or that feels scared. That's a really beautiful and important thing that we can do right now. So we're walking towards more women empowerment, and we're also walking towards more women empowerment in general in society when it comes to how we value what women do, because right now we're seeing that what women do is actually what holds up our entire society. Right now, the people who are going out there risking their lives and risking death and the death of their loved ones in order to help out in this pandemic, in order to help our loved ones survive when they get the coronavirus, for example. It's not the people on Wall Street. It's not like Wolf on Wall Street. It's not, a banker. It's not, I can't come up with anything right now, but it's not like that guy who has a really successful job in sales or graphic design at this really cool firm or whatever. It is, in fact, professions that we have generally associated with this nurturing field, with this feminine field. We have in general seen nurses, for example, as a female profession, and that's why we have at least here in Sweden, we have downgraded that and not given them enough pay, not given them enough respect, even though they should be paid way more than people on Wall Street are, because they're working so freaking hard, and not in order to make money, but just in order to help people. And so we are seeing how our value system has been really skewed, and this also comes to the people that are taking care of the elderly, that every day go to these lousy jobs where they're not getting enough pay, just because of the goodness of their hearts, because they care, because they want to be there for the elderly, because they want to make sure that they're having a good final days of their lives. And we have not appreciated those people enough either. We have not appreciated most of the professions and most of the people that have anything to do with what we have traditionally associated with the women-led sphere and the private sphere. And so now we're being forced to see that this underappreciation is really, it can be dangerous, it can be, and it's also embarrassing when it comes to a time like this, when those people actually have to risk their lives to do what they do, and we want them to do what they do more than any time before. And so this is going to really tip the scales when it comes to what we actually appreciate as a humanity, as a collective. And I'm also getting the sense that this is being ushered in by spirits. We are getting this lesson because we need it. We are being guided, we're being protected. We needed to be protected, and we needed to be guided through an event like this, unfortunately. And it's very sad. I do pray for everyone who have lost their lives in this tragedy, and I really hope that they can move on to their next life as peaceful as possible. But for us who are left, Yeah, this is a time of peace. We are being guided, we're being protected, both for those who have to pass on and for those who are still here, such as you guys watching, for example. We are being guided, we're being protected. There's no need to be scared. There's actually a really gentle aura, there's actually a really gentle, kind energy surrounding this whole happening, even if it might seem scary and turbulent and chaotic. But there's actually a lot of love surrounding us right now. For some reason I'm getting that this has come in, that this was all unleashed because it needed to happen, but right now as a human race we're being guided by spirit to take it with compassion, to make something beautiful out of it, and also to heal something within ourselves, because the beginning of April I think was just a lot of fear and doubt and shock going around, and now we've come to a point where we are slowly shifting out of that and shifting into a more constructive way of seeing what has been happening, and a more constructive, trusting, peaceful view of what's going on. And that's something that we're being guided towards. We're being we're being guided towards understanding that this needed to happen. We're being guided towards understanding that we will be okay. No matter what happens, we will be okay. We're being guided towards understanding Okay, so we got some very powerful cards here. We got the Four of Swords. But what really struck me with this card was the way that the third eye is open here with the lamb. So this is a really powerful divine timing to be doing spiritual work. But it doesn't have to be like pretentious. I don't want to say pretentious, but it doesn't have to be like super ambitious. It doesn't have to be like meditating for 2 hours a day or whatever. It just has to do with rest. It has to do with rest and connecting with yourself and connecting with your heart. The heart is really important in this time, because the heart, if you try and run from it, you will be faced with fear and anger. You or other people will show bouts of fear and anger, and that can unleash fear and anger in you. So it's really important to just sit still and to meditate on what's going on and to allow it to happen, and to allow yourself to experience whatever you're experiencing in your home and with the people that you have around you. And through doing that, and through doing whatever you might be feeling called to do, that could be baking, that could be painting, that could be singing, that could be being with your children, you are getting a better connection with your spirituality. And be aware of your dreams, because this is a time where we're getting a lot of downloads through our dreams. And the more that you try and write down your dreams, or you try and connect with your dreams, the more you're connecting to your third eye and the messages that you're getting right now. So a good idea, for example, could be to just have a journal next to your bed and to write down whatever is going on. This is definitely one of those massive events in history that has to happen in order for something to shift, in order for something to change. Again, I think we've had the precursors to this happening, because we've had a lot of catastrophes, we've had a lot of things happening that have really shook our view of what it means to be a person in the modern world right now. For the past few, 7 years, I'm getting 7 years for some reason. 7 to 8 years perhaps, which is interesting because that's when the Mayan calendar ended, 2012. But this is a giant one, and this is a giant wake-up call. This is a giant shift. This is a tour de force. And we are being forced to deal with the way that we have been using the public sphere to divert from our own hearts, to divert from our own fears, and how we can connect with ourselves. This is really a solitary time, and it doesn't mean that you have to be alone. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't connect with people on on Zoom, on Facebook, on whatever, Skype, whatever your social connection app of choice is. But it just means that you need to connect with yourself right now. You need to sit still for a moment with your heart, because this is a healing of the heart on all levels, all parts of society. And the more ravaged and the more broken your heart is, the more time it's going to need. And we have a lot of people with broken hearts right now. Whether it has to do with the fact that we have such big income inequalities, whether it has to do with the fact that we have a lot of injustice going around in the world, and a lot of aggression as well, and alienation of people, like throwing people away from society that we don't think are fit enough to fit in, or whatever it might be. We need to heal those wounds, and we need to realize that we have been trying to run away from that by constantly changing foot from one foot to the other, and constantly being out in the public sphere. So what will happen after this? What's coming for humanity as a result of this pandemic, as a result of this there will be a sense of loss. There will be a sense of loss, definitely. We will need to grieve and process this event long after it's actually over, and that will be probably done both in the public sphere and in the private, both in politics and in science, and in the families that have lost a loved one, in the way that we arrange our community, and so on and so forth. There will be a sense of, could this have been done differently? What did we do wrong? And so on and so forth. And there will be a need to rekindle that emotion and to deal with the trauma that has been inflicted on all of the human race in a very short and abrupt amount of time, definitely. After that, comes a sense of ease. There's something being born out of this that has to do with creativity, that has to do with femininity, that has to do with love, and it's a more kind, kindled emotion. It's a childishness, it's an openness, and it's a vulnerability to ourselves and to one another that we haven't experienced in a very long time. And that we need to experience again, because that's actually the core of our human experience, is our ability to be vulnerable, our ability to be not perfect, our ability to be not the same as everyone else, our ability to be inspired and creative and childish, and just experience life rather than direct life. And that's what's happening, subconsciously with us right now. Once we have processed the grief, once we have accepted the fact that we've lost a lot, and once we have moved on, there's a sense of ease, there's a sense of childlessness that's coming to us, that's there for the taking of anyone who's wanting to or being able to make the most of this experience. Actually, I don't want to put it like that, because that makes it sound like it's some sort of game or some sort of competition, which it is definitely not. But what I'm saying is, if you're getting stuck on the loss, which a lot of people can do also in regular times, you lose something and you keep wallowing over what you lost over and over and over again, that's a possibility for some people. And then, you know, this sense of ease, this sense of being connected to your human core will be harder to access. But if you accept the grief, accept the sense of loss, accept the fact that something has been changed within you and that we are walking towards new times, there's actually a whole new level of being human, a whole new experience of being human that will be available to you and that will be available to the collective, and that we're unlocking right now. And I think that's really beautiful. So with that, I want to say thank you. That was a really long reading. I hope that gave you guys something. And I guess that's it. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. I will try to make one of these every week, but I'm not going to promise anything. At least once a month I will do a video, a reading, pick a card reading, or some channeled insights, whatever it might be. So I really look forward to seeing you guys here, and please, if you haven't already commented or subscribed, please do so. I love hearing your thoughts. I love seeing that you guys appreciate the content that I make, and I love you guys. So I'll see you next time.